Heavy downpours wreaked havoc across parts of China, washing out roadways and bridges, flooding entire communities, and carrying off vehicles along with unfortunate individuals in regions like Sichuan and Gansu. Commentary: it's a stark reminder of how quickly weather can turn deadly, especially in mountainous areas where infrastructure is already vulnerable. Between September 4th and 6th, a combination of a plateau low-pressure system and chilly air masses triggered intense precipitation across a broad swath of the country, from Gansu down to Sichuan and eastward from Hunan to Chongqing. Ominous, churning dark clouds gathered overhead, accompanied by relentless lightning strikes that lit up what promised to be a brutal, stormy evening. Folks in various provinces were caught off guard, never anticipating that a routine storm could escalate so rapidly into catastrophe, transforming everyday streets into ferocious torrents, hillsides into cascading avalanches of sludge and rocks, and bustling urban areas into massive, murky lakes. Commentary: this kind of rapid escalation highlights the importance of advanced weather warnings. Without them, even prepared communities can be overwhelmed in mere hours. In Gansu province, the trouble kicked off from the night of September 4th into the wee hours of the 5th, with torrential rains pounding districts such as Hatong, Teni, Lintan, Juziu, and Jiandai in the southern reaches. At the outset, locals dismissed it as a typical heavy shower, but as thunder boomed like artillery and the ominous rumble of collapsing earth reverberated from the peaks, the true scale of the crisis dawned on everyone. Vital routes like the G568 and S210 became impassable, clogged with debris. Boulders and loose dirt tumbled from above, eroding the very bases of the paths and carving out perilous craters that resembled traps set by nature itself. Segments of pavement dangled precariously, swaying under any lingering load, evoking sheer terror in onlookers. Commentary: these events underscore the fragility of human engineering against natural forces. Roads we rely on daily can vanish in an instant, isolating communities and complicating rescue efforts. One truck operator in Jiandai County shared a chilling tale. He'd barely cleared a stretch of road when, just moments later, a massive chunk behind him crumbled away, guardrails and all vanishing into the void. A slight delay, he noted, and he'd have been entombed in the rubble. Commentary: stories like this personalize the disaster, showing how split-second timing can mean the difference between life and death, and they serve as powerful testimonials for heeding evacuation orders promptly. Right after the deluge struck, the Gansu Southern Highway Management Authority sprang into action with crisis protocols. Scores of response crews, equipped with heavy machinery like dozers, diggers, and lifting equipment, worked tirelessly through the darkness, battling the elements to restore access. It was a high-stakes operation, fraught with danger. Amidst the pouring rain and ongoing slides from the hillsides, the teams pressed on without pause. A young crew member, Lu Wei, described it panting, "We're not stopping for anything. If these lines collapse entirely, countless lives hang in the balance. Every second counts, or the fallout could be catastrophic." The dedication of these first responders is inspiring, but it also raises questions about worker safety. Pushing through such hazardous conditions is heroic, yet it points to the need for better protective measures in future emergencies. By 12:55 a.m. on the 5th, critical portions of the G568 near Haha and the S210 in Jiandai had been utterly demolished, replaced by sludge-filled abysses. Vast expanses of asphalt looked as though they'd been severed and hurled into oblivion. Elsewhere, the underlying supports gave way, leaving bridges of roadway suspended over yawning drops like fractured relics. Nearby inhabitants observed from afar, many in tears as their lifelines to the wider world morphed into lethal voids. Officials collaborated with centers in Longnan, Dingxi, and Linhe to reroute vehicles, seal off hazards, and broadcast critical warnings to citizens. Commentary: coordinating such responses in real time is no small feat, and it demonstrates the value of interagency cooperation, though it also exposes gaps in rural infrastructure that could be addressed with more resilient designs. Yet Gansu's ordeal was far from isolated, as neighboring areas grappled with the same unrelenting wrath of the skies. On September 5th, the Sichuan Basin in southwestern China was hit by a deluge of biblical proportions. Picture this: Rain so intense it was like the heavens had opened up, pouring water into a region already shaped like a giant natural bowl. This wasn't just a storm, it was a meteorological onslaught, driven by a powerful combination of a low-pressure system swirling over the highlands and chilly air currents sweeping in from the north. The result? A perfect recipe for chaos. Places like Guangyuan, Beijing, Nanchung, Suining, and the eastern parts of Nanyang bore the brunt of it. Some areas saw up to 240 millimeters of rainfall. Imagine a quarter of a meter of water just dumping down. At times, the rain was falling so hard it hit 100 millimeters per hour. To put that in perspective, that's like filling a standard bathtub in just a few minutes. The streets turned into raging torrents, and the sound of the rain was so loud it drowned out car horns. Can you imagine trying to drive through that? It's like something out of an apocalyptic movie. One woman from Guangyuan shared a chilling account of the ordeal. She said she'd never seen anything like it in her life. Within just an hour, the water had risen to waist level. Think about that, waist-deep water in 60 minutes. She and her neighbors had to scramble to higher ground, climbing to the second floor of their building. From there, they could only watch as the streets below transformed into wild, rushing rivers. It's the kind of scene that makes you realize how quickly nature can take control. Now, here's where it gets even more serious. The Sichuan Basin's geography makes it especially vulnerable to flooding. It's literally a basin, surrounded by mountains, so all that water has nowhere to go but down, pooling in the lowlands. Meteorological experts were quick to issue warnings about the high risk of flash floods, landslides, and mudslides. And let me tell you, those aren't just buzzwords, these are life-threatening dangers, especially for villages nestled at the base of mountains. Many of those areas were put on red alert, the highest level of warning. Rescue teams were out in force, going door to door in the dead of night, using loudspeakers to urge people to evacuate. Imagine hearing those urgent calls through the pounding rain, with alarm sirens piercing the air. It must have been terrifying. Entire towns were gripped by panic as residents grabbed what they could and fled to safety. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Meanwhile, halfway across China in Hunan province, the situation was just as dire. Heavy rains hammered major cities like Kaifeng, Xinyang, and Zhengzhou. Now, if Zhengzhou sounds familiar, it's because this city was devastated by catastrophic floods back in 2021. Those memories are still fresh, and this latest downpour must have felt like a cruel déjà vu for residents. In just a few hours, downtown Zhengzhou turned into a watery maze. Roads became rivers, with water so deep it reached above car roofs in some places. One resident described the chaos. They were driving home when the water surged around them, rising so fast it felt like the city was sinking. By the time they got to their apartment, the basement had turned into a swimming pool, with dozens of cars completely submerged. Sirens were going off everywhere, adding to the sense of urgency. Over in Xinyang, the situation wasn't any better. Public transportation ground to a halt as buses and trains were overwhelmed by the floodwaters. Imagine being stuck in a city where you can't get anywhere, with water rising all around you. It's the kind of scenario that tests a community's resilience. Residents sought shelter beneath shop awnings, watching helplessly as floodwaters carried away debris, scooters, and even small market stalls. The cityscape looked like a scene from a disaster movie, with water surging through urban streets. Emergency crews sprang into action, deploying powerful pumps to combat the deluge. Small teams braved waist-deep water, guiding stranded residents to safety. A high school student caught in the flood shared a harrowing account. The storm warnings didn't seem that serious at first. But then water flooded our school courtyard, and our teachers had to guide us over fences to escape. Some of my classmates slipped in the rush, but thankfully, rescuers were there to catch them. The chaos wasn't limited to one area. In Chongqing, a sprawling metropolis along the upper Yangtze River, the situation was equally dire. Relentless rainfall far exceeded normal levels, accompanied by thunderstorms and gale-force winds that shook the city. Streets transformed into raging torrents, sweeping away anything in their path. Muddy water inundated power substations, prompting authorities to cut electricity across large swaths of the city to prevent dangerous accidents. At a major railway station, floodwater poured into underground entrances, triggering a frantic evacuation of thousands of passengers. Trains were canceled, buses were immobilized, and countless vehicles were stranded in fast-moving currents. A Chongqing bus driver recounted a terrifying ordeal. "The water came up so fast, my bus got stuck in the middle of a flooded intersection. Passengers were panicking, and I had to smash the windows to help them escape. We clung to utility lines along the roadside to stay safe. I've never seen my city flood this quickly." As the situation worsened, the National Weather Service issued urgent red alerts, warning of continued heavy rain and severe storms from Saturday evening through Sunday night. Some areas could see rainfall rates exceeding 120 millimeters per hour. Authorities urged residents to steer clear of tunnels, low-lying areas, and flooded bridges, emphasizing the deadly risks of underestimating the floodwaters. Stay informed and safe, and let's continue to support the communities facing these challenges.